Hello world of YouTube and welcome to the listening log update for August of 2020. There are 11 albums I need to get through, or that I listened to over the last month that I decided to talk about with you guys. I got some requests knocked out, some general catch up, and some new releases sprinkled in the mix as well. And I want to say that even though I made the video earlier this week talking about pulling back on content, I don't want to make that be like a beacon of, or let that act as like a statement of don't request things for the segment, because as always, I'm always interested to see in what you guys are interested in that's new, in tandem with what I'm liking or what piques my interest, and what things that I might have missed as the year has gone on. But with that caveat out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. The first album I listened to was Dominic Fike's
What could possibly go wrong?
Which was kind of requested or heavily suggested by my buddies Joe and Lauren, who I played D&D with in my spare time in tandem with just hanging out with. They were really vibing with it, and they had thrown it on when we were hanging out, and I listened to it on my own time. And I enjoy this project. I've seen it, at least in some instances, get some pretty harsh criticism, and I don't necessarily think it's merited. I think this is solid in its own regards. I do have issues with it, but as far as the production goes, as far as the presentation, I think this is a bright, fun collection of songs that have a popular-leaning sound that kind of tap into certain facets of indie culture that have been going on over the last couple of years, and I think that that's fine. I really enjoy tracks like Cancel Me and Vampires and Why as well. But my biggest issue, even with some of those songs, is that this album kind of burns through its ideas too fast. There's some instances where I feel like Dominic could really have harnessed some of these songs, fleshed them out a little more, and made a more worthwhile experience. The biggest instance that I heard on the entire project was 10 Times Stronger. I really like the mood and grandiosity behind that song, but it just kind of cuts way too fucking fast and acts more as like a weird interlude between two songs that don't sound a damn thing like it. And it's stuff like that in tandem with some of the more just kind of underwritten cuts that set this album back for me. But I still think it's fine. I think that some of the hooks on here are really catchy, really stick with you in a positive way. I think the musicianship that's here is tight, if not a little basic at times. But I really enjoy a lot of this project. I think it's solid enough. I think it's a good album to just throw on and have act as sort of sonic wallpaper, with some songs having some subject matter that it tackles, like the track Cancel Me, which lyrically goes a little too far, but at its core, for most of the track, it kind of sits in a realm of enjoyment for me personally. Other tracks that kind of dip into weirder realms are tracks like Chicken Tenders. Wouldn't say it's a huge favorite track of mine. And lyrically, it dips into some weird territories, or it has some weird sort of storytelling elements in it that I don't think completely are executed all that well. But this isn't the worst thing I've heard all year. I think you could do worse. I just feel like Dominic Fike should have just taken more time with this project and maybe fleshed it out a little more. But the production is fine. It's catchy as fuck when it wants to be, and it's harmless for the most part. I'm giving this like a 7 out of 10.
On the fridge, I'm on broken spokes, poking holes in the ghost.
I was completely shocked at the full-fledged return of hip-hop duo Felt, comprised of Slug from Atmosphere and Murs, a group that I got into in college. If you listen to the two-piece hip-hop cocktails playlist I made for the Patreon, they were one of the groups on there. I really enjoyed their chemistry. I think they come together pretty well on their first 3 records, and on this new project, it's like they never fucking left. Ant does the production on here, and instead of following the trends he was doing on the last couple of Atmosphere projects, he injects a lot of synth and funk in there, but keeps it as smooth as those Atmosphere projects has been. He's just giving a different sonic palette for the two to play off of, and I think that it's fucking incredible. I love the grooves on the opener, Never's Enough, on Trees, and on Find My Way. The bass on Find My Way pops so very fucking well, and it meshes really well with the hook on that song. And on this project, Murs and Slug kind of have some songs with some sonic idea, or some lyrical ideas, and the two play off of each other incredibly well. You know, Sticks and Stones talks about their come up in their own respective neighborhoods and how both have had their own glimpses in violence. Trees is a weed anthem and it's dope as fuck. Don't Do Me Like That sees them having disputes at home with their respective spouses. It sees both of them convening and interloping things that they've talked about on their own respective solo outings or outings apart, just together in a nice woven umbrella. I really enjoy this thing. I think that it's great. I liked Merce's stuff that he was doing with strange music, even though that was one of the weirder things I had seen happen in hip-hop over the last 10 years. And as I've reviewed on the channel, enjoyed the Atmosphere projects that have come out over the last decade. They've both just kind of been in their own realms of normalcy. They both have kind of plateaued and have been comfortable in the realms that they've been coasting in. But I'm happy that when convening together, while embracing some of the lyrical ideas that they've talked about on their own, they gel together like fucking a perfect sandwich. And again, Ant's production just enhances a lot of the tones and vibes that match the flows seen by both artists. I think this album is incredible. I feel like if you enjoy both of these two artists by themselves and you haven't listened to Felt, give this record a listen. It's an incredible project, really fucking good. It's one that I'm latching onto a lot and I've been spinning a lot over the last month. I think it's one of my favorite hip-hop projects of the year so far. I think that it's strong, it's consistent, and it's tight at that. Nothing too lofty and ambitious. It's just two friends coming back together, acting like they never left. I'm giving this an 8 out of 10. And the next album I checked out was one requested by CJ before he moved to Jersey. It is a Belgian avant-garde jazz drone metal record called Eons by the group Neptunian Maximalism. This is 3 hours long, and it's worth every second. I love the melding of those two abstract ideas, and I think they come together pretty fucking well. And when I mean avant-garde jazz, I mean there are some tracks in here that have just this really abstract approach to the jazzier nuance, like on, and I'm going to butcher every single song title that I reference in this review, but Magica Zungla, or Carboniferous, which has these piano sprinklings in with this ambient backdrop and these sprinkles of percussion, or some of the more monolithic in length tracks, like the Vajra Ba Air Rava. There's a 3-part suite of that combines these monolithic guitars and ambient backdrops with these polyrhythmic, weird time signature percussions and noodlings of woodwinds and pianos in there. It's weird, it's long, and it's jazz. But I like all 3 of those elements, and adding a whole colossal amount of noise and drone and these ambient colossal soundscapes. It comes together in a harmonious marriage that I feel like is incredibly worth your time. It is probably the longest record I'll hear all year, the biggest patience tester, but there's always a record I listen to at least once in a year that is long, patience testing, and worth it to varying degrees. But I feel like out of the ones I've listened to in recent years, if you like it, you're gonna like it a lot. It is not for everybody, and I understand that, from its odd song titles to its very garbled together musings of noise. I could see this turning a lot of people away, but it's very up my alley in a very niche specific way. And I thank you, CJ, for suggesting this. It's not a record that I would say I've spun a lot, but I've enjoyed the times that I've sat with it. I'm giving this a 9 out of 10. Very, very worth it. One of the best albums I've heard this year of its style. It's like if, you know, Sun did a jazz-infused record, and it's really fucking cool. Another record I was kind of surprised to see come out was a new Fall of Troy record called Mukiltearth, which sees them re-recording a lot of the songs that they recorded on their debut as 30 Years' War, Martyrs Among the Casualties, like the first leg of this record, for the most part, are re-recordings of tracks from that era, with some new songs also sandwiched in the back half, and it's a nice marriage of past and future in a great way. I've seen people complain that their vocalist can't really tap into that aggressive sound all that well, but I would disagree. On their last album, OK, they did a really good job of bringing back a lot of edge and that post-hardcore influence incredibly well, and that's continued on this project, even if half of it is old. For those that hadn't listened to their pre-Fall of Troy work like myself, it was a nice introduction to that sound with a little more of a modernization in it, with bigger focus on melody and some of the tracks, especially on the back half, but they meld both of those ideas incredibly well on here, and I actually like a lot of the tracks on this as a whole. You know, I think that the newer production style, I say newer because it just sounds like Fall of Troy, but it's still produced in a way that doesn't feel maybe as raw as it could have back then, and I like the cleaning up of the mixes. It's just a great-ass record that has the technicality you would expect from the Fall of Troy, with maybe some nostalgia for those that have been fans of them for so long. I feel like this is a great love letter to the past while adapting it for a newer audience. I think this is great. I think it's really cool. I like especially tracks like Chain Wallet, Nike Shoes, and the day the strength of men failed. I think that it's a good ass project. Is worth your time in my opinion. I give this an 8 out of 10.
Mommy, when you give me body, I won't let go. You the best, baby. Yep, you.
Now, I may have stuck up for the last Black Eyed Peas project, Masters of the Sun, Volume 1, but translation doesn't sound like a continuation of the ideas seen on that project. This is one of the laziest records I've heard all year. Instead of interloping classic hip-hop in a sort of Black Eyed Peas sort of way and making a solid-ass throwback hip-hop record with features from Nas and Slick Rick, this is just a lazy-ass Latin pop and reggaeton project with the same rhythm recycled for about 80% of this project, the same obnoxious production that was seen on albums like The Beginning, and lazy sample work, because that's the Black Eyed Peas calling card. I actually don't mind the sample on the Bad Boys for Life song, the intro cut, because hey, it's that Corona jam with a powerful ass hook, but a majority of this project doesn't quite stand up to the same sample quality. I think that the use of artists like Shakira and J Balvin feel, while very trying to pay tribute to maybe that scene, feel kind of tacked on in a lazy sort of way, because they also have other lazy artists on here like Tyga, who doesn't do much for the track that he's on. This project is a weird place for the Black Eyed Peas to go following the what I would consider an admirable bounce back. It almost feels like business as usual for them instead of something fresh from the guys. You would think that in the absence of Fergie, they may have abandoned a more pop-leaning approach to hip-hop and instead trying to focus more on the stuff that was pertinent then when they made Masters of the Sun, and even more so now. But no, they're just gonna try and cash in on reggaeton in a way that an artist like Cardi B may have done successfully on her project. This album sucks. Again, one of the laziest records I've heard all year, and I'm giving this a 1 out of 10. It really is that bad.
It's over now. You pushed me so.
Now, Little Boy Velvet, the artist in question, actually suggested I review this project or listen to this project on Rate Your Music, which leads me to believe that Little Boy Velvet is, like myself, a Rate Your Music user who makes their own music. And I can appreciate that, and I can appreciate the DIY approach that this record kind of feels like it has sonically. You know, tracks like the opener, Butterflies Not Free, or the heavier guitar that comes in on Burn the Love Letter, or the sort of looser production that coats a lot of this project. It has a very DIY approach, and I respect that, and I like that. And I like how that gives Little Boy Velvet his own sort of creative vacuum on this, where it's a very abstract release. There's lots of spoken word, and hooks that kind of are repeated to a very cyclical degree, like on the opener, and a very loose structure to the project. My issue is that some of that DIY production leads to some moments that I feel like could have been tightened up in different ways. The drop on the track, Betty's Parish Piano, I feel like could have hit a little harder. There's just some things that stem from this project that I feel like are a product of DIY music. And it's not to an incredible detrimental degree, because unlike a big label-funded or crowd-funded project, this has this sort of grassroots feeling. You can feel this sort of intimacy within some of the lyrics, some of the performance, some of the whispered words that are on here. It has a very personal, intimate feel to it, even if it has a sinister edge, like on Satan's Texts and Unholy Romantic, or on some of the weird off-kilter experimentation on a track like Fatal Distraction that I really enjoyed, but I feel like by the end of the track felt more scattershot than it did harnessed. This project, though, is really solid. If you like abstract, trip-hop inspired art pop, you'll enjoy this project to some degree, but I feel like a lot of listeners may also find issues with some of the things that I found, or even be turned off by some of the more experimental edges sonically that coat this project. I like some of the experimental edges, but I feel like they could have been either reined in a little bit, retooled on a production standpoint, or just generally portrayed differently. But I don't think this is bad by any means. I just feel like it needs to be reined in or harnessed a little better. I'm giving this, though, a 6 out of 10.
I'm here to fuck up your whole career, my nigga. Don't play dumb dummy.
So I've enjoyed the Amine stuff that I've heard in the past. I wouldn't say I'm like a diehard fan, but I feel like Amine is a solid enough artist in his own right. And when he announced Limbo, I was pretty interested, because I've liked what I've heard, but I'd never fully committed to a project. And on Limbo, I walk away pretty satisfied. I like a lot of the production on here. I like the meldings of sort of lo-fi guitars with punchy production. I like Amine's flow on a lot of this. I like a lot of the subject matter that he tackles, like tribute to his mama on Mama, talking about being in an interracial relationship like on Becky, the tribute to ODB kind of on Shimmy with the ODB sample and sort of interpolation of Shimmy Shimmy Ya's hook on that hook. I like the sort of edgy, unkempt approach to delivery on that track. And I like a lot of the features that he sprinkles out in here as well. I enjoy Pressure in My Pants with Slow Tie and Vince Staples. I really dig the track with Injury Reserve. The production on that feels pretty different from a lot of the record, but fits cohesively into the cut just as well. I even like the track with Jid and Charlie Wilson. I think that Charlie Wilson's contributions on the outro of that song are really solid as well. My issues with this project more stem from some of the other features. I don't like the Young Thug feature all that much. Generally, some of the tracks on here aren't necessarily as memorable as others. Some of it feels a little scattershot, but as a whole, this is still a solid-ass project that I feel like fans of Amine are going to walk away enjoying, and as sort of a relative outsider looking in, I also walked away enjoying a lot of this project, and I could see myself revisiting it time and time again, because it doesn't overstay its welcome. It has a lot to say, it says it, and it gets out, and it's a great enough project that I feel like if you enjoy his stuff, you're going to enjoy. I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10.
Stay and wait, cab service, car 85, 10 minutes, they back in the car.
I really like the lead-in single to this project, Ultra Black. I thought Hit Boy's production was dope, and it got me stoked for Nas's latest record, King's Disease, which sees Nas being very reflective in a lot of different aspects. Whether it's him reflecting on being, you know, a top entertainer in the industry as far as performance goes and consistency, or at least being viewed as one of the GOATs on tracks like the title track or The Cure, you know, reflecting on being not only just the top successfully through fans, but monetarily, you know, talking on tracks like Blue Benz, there's tracks where he just reflects about his tenure in general, like on 27 Summers, or in a certain way Full Circle, which has a Firm reunion, which was a dope thing to see. I really liked that track in particular. I liked that everybody comes together, the beat's really smooth, and everybody, it just feels like it's a good sort of, again, full circle sort of moment. A lot of this record kind of feels like that, in tandem with other sorts of reflections, like Nas finally kind of speaking on his relationship with Nicki Minaj, on All Bad, which has a nice feature from Anderson .Paak, or on Replace Me, not necessarily his relationship with Nicki Minaj, but his other relationships in general, which has Big Sean in there as well. I like this record. I think Nas being reflective is a good thing for Nas to be, because I feel like, in general, reflection kind of keeps you grounded. And it's also cool to see a dude who is considered one of the GOATs by many, myself included. He's not my greatest rapper of all time, but he's in my top 10. I'm a big fan of Nas, and I think that while his career hasn't been consistent, when he hits pretty hard, and this is another instance of that. While I gave Nasir, the last project he did, the last real Lost Tapes aside project he did, and I liked it a lot, and I liked Kanye's production, I'll be honest, that album has maybe come down in score for me a little bit, you know, but as I keep re-listening to King's Disease, for as tight as it is, it's about as tight as Nasir, it's just not as short. I like what Nas delivers across the board. I think the production's really smooth, very vintage feeling, and it matches the tone of Nas's delivery. You know, another track on here that I feel like really encapsulates just how well he's channeling this vintage vibe on Car 85. He reflects a lot about a drug deal that may have gone on early on in his career, and the beat and Charlie Wilson's feature just meld so well together in this harmonious marriage. I dig this project a hell of a lot, and feel like it acts as another late career notch on Nas's belt, up there with Life is Good and Nasir. I'm giving this project an 8. I think it's very good. I think it's really worth your time if you like Nas, if you like old school hip-hop, if you just like dudes who spit bars in general. Listen to this project. You probably already have, because you probably already really like Nas. The Killers are finally following up their 2017 record, Wonderful Wonderful, a record that I really enjoyed, that a lot of the scene was kind of underwhelmed by. But Imploding the Mirage sees them shifting back away from the new centric focus sound that coded that and was more reflective of their earlier work and expansive of that, and feels more expansive of the one record of the career I've never really spent time with, Battleborn. I've heard a lot of Heartland rock comparisons thrown to Battleborn. That's why I'm sort of making that adjacent sort of comparison. But if it sounds anything like Imploding the Mirage, I feel like I would really enjoy Battleborn, because I like the sounds here. They sort of meld the heavy usage of synths incredibly well with this Heartland sound, and Brendan Flowers does a good job at presenting a lot of charisma behind that same kind of vocal style that would suit a Heartland rock album. You know, I like a lot of the production on deals on tracks like Dying Breed and on Blowback. I like the instances where they integrate the kind of jangly guitars with the heavy synth usage. I think it's a good sound that the band really gels with incredibly well, that they explore on a couple of aspects of this record. I like a lot of the moments where the album soars as a whole. Some of these choruses are fucking gargantuan, and they really reach the sort of apex you would expect from a group really inspired by Springsteen. You know, it's Springsteen hitting his peaks. I feel like this sort of definitely feels like a very heartfelt tribute and homage to that sound, without sounding too derivative in my opinion, because I feel like the Killers do let their personality shine on a lot of this project. One, in part, to Brendan Flowers' voice and his delivery, but also due in part to the production, which was handled by Sean Everett, who's done a lot of Casey Musgrave's work, and Jonathan Rado from Foxygen, who know how to handle the sound and make it sound gargantuan. And I also really love the moments where not only they sound propulsive, like some of the moments that I've mentioned already, or tracks like Caution, but I also love when they sort of pull it back a bit, not losing the scale, but pulling back the rhythm, like the two tracks that have featured artists, Lightning Fields and My God. I think My God in particular is incredible. I think Brendan Flowers and Way Is Blood vocalize really well together. I think their voices gel so very well. I feel like this is a great expansion of and utilization of a sound without, again, sounding too derivative. I like this project a lot, and I think it's just as good as Wonderful Wonderful, but for a different reason, at least in my book. I think this is a great-ass project. I feel like if you liked The Killers, or if you liked Battleborn, I'd love to know what you think of this project, because again, that's the one record of their career that flew completely past me the year that it came out, for as much as I liked The Killers, and I don't know. I'm curious. I'm genuinely curious. So if you've listened to this record, let me know what you think about it. But yeah, I'm walking away loving this thing. I think it's great. I think the production's very, I don't know, warm feeling. It gives me this weird sense of neo-nostalgia in a crazy way, and I enjoy it. I'm giving this an 8 out of 10. I was kind of late to the Creeper Party. I had heard them post their debut album through friends like John and Hannah who really enjoyed their stuff. And I liked their debut. I think it's solid enough as it is. You know, I didn't really follow the story of Creeper post that. I didn't know about the breakup and the comeback. So I'm kind of sitting here as a passive fan of this band. I knew and I had seen that they had changed up their style for this project, and they were trying to sort of branch out sonically, something that I can very much respect. And on their new record, Sex, Death, and the Infinite Void, I feel like I enjoy where they take aspects of their sound, and I like the idea of utilizing their keyboardist more as a vocalist in general. I think that presents a good sort of variety in vocal styles, and I feel like the two of their lead singer and their keyboardist voices suit each other very, very well. And I like parts of this record, and I like the idea of them cramming so much stuff into such a tight runtime. But I feel like even when it's shoved into this sort of compact track listing, things start to kind of splinter off and feel a little unnecessary. You know, the use of interludes while acting as a sort of narrative thread don't do much for me other than bridge sounds. The transition from like Napalm Girls to Black Moon, the interlude there feels more just like a buffer between sonic shifts. And while I think that's a smart move, I feel like it also just kind of feels meaningless. While again, it's trying to tie the narrative thread and tie the characters together, and I think that that's ambitious. I feel like there's a smoother way to do that, personally. But I do like this record. I like the ambition behind it. I like the gusto these guys are aiming for. And I like the sonic shifts in direction that they go for. There's some tracks that I like more than others. I really like the old school piano rock styled stuff like Black Moon a lot. I also like the moments where their singer kind of uses his lower end of his register a lot when he sings. I also think that a track like Paradise really encapsulates how well the two singers work together. I feel like there's some tracks that others have liked that I don't think are as good. I don't really like Be My End, the opener, all that much. I think Cyanide's a better sort of aiming for the rafters single that has a great hook to it. The writing on this in general has a nice sort of devilish twist that I would expect from a band like this, but it's really wrapped up in a lot of the inspirations to a lot of the turmoil the band may have been facing between records. Because I've heard there's a lot that happened, or there was at least a lot of publicity that went down. And I think that they channeled that really well in some of the writing on here. And again, I appreciate the sort of distancing and branching out from the more strictly horror punk roots that were on their debut. And I think that this record is pretty solid. I think that I get why people enjoy it more than me. I do like the theatrics on it, and I feel like when it utilizes those theatrics well, it pays off for them, but I feel like it holds itself back in a few instances in a way that others may not agree with, but I think holds it back. But I am giving this a pretty moderate score. I'm giving this a 6. I think that it is pretty solid. I just think that, to me personally, it could have flowed a little better. I feel like they use the interludes as sort of a crutch to help with sequencing. And while, again, that's not necessarily the only time other artists have done that, I just feel like there's a better way to utilize or to do sonic shifts smoothly.
It's hot then. I got options. I can pass that bitch like Stockton.
And to close out the month, I checked out the new Jack Harlow project, What's Poppin', and some other songs he threw together to capitalize on What's Poppin'. No, I'm just kidding. This project, though, does feel a little short, and some of the tracks feel kind of like fluff on an already short project. I do feel like Jack was like, I made a bop, let's capitalize on a bop. I like Jack Harlow's last project, Fine Confetti. I think I gave it like a 6. I think it was solid. I think the kid has talent. I think it's warranted for him to be on a XXL freestyle list. I just think that he should actually write a record. What's Poppin' is fine. It's a decent cut, and I can see why it's popular. It's got a good hook to it, and I like tracks like Too Stylish and I Want to See Some Ass, and I like the closer Once May Comes. But this record's only like 16 minutes long. It's a micro record. But it's not the same type of micro record that was like a Yay or like a Daytona. You know, there's a way to make a small micro album work. The new the 9 Inch Nails record, Bad Witch, was also another great example. This necessarily isn't it. I feel like there needs to be a little more here to make it feel like a full experience. I kind of feel like listening to this, if I'd have bought it, I'd have been a little pissed because I feel like I wouldn't have got my money's worth. But I feel like Jack has some decent songs here, but its length, in this instance, is a little too short, a little too hard to ignore, because it definitely breezes by its runtime without much, leaving the listener with much. A lot of the beats are kind of whatever, and Jack as a presence is sort of inconsistent. I give this a 4 out of 10. That's going to be my month. What did you think of these records? Seriously, I want to know what you thought of these records. Let me know in those comments down below. If you have any suggestions for the listening log. One, it's linked in the description, so you can see what's already on my radar. And if there's something you want to see me just bump up, just let me know in the comments down below. Or if there's something that's not on there, let me know about it so I can give it a listen and talk about it for you guys. If you like this video, be sure to give it a like. If you want to see more of my music, gaming, and general nerdery content, be sure to subscribe. Special thanks to my patrons if you would like to join their ranks to get early access to content, exclusive content, or to help drive the community. It's linked in the description. I'm going to get out of here. Thank you so very much for watching. I have been Viral Rack. You guys have good days, lives, and situations, and I'll see you another day.